Okay, now if the ZPE, going back in history, it was
lower back in the
lower
past.
back there, what's the impact of that on organisms of animals and that sort of thing? Can you talk to that then?
Yeah, okay. It does have a surprising consequence here because as you have a look at what the ZPE does to the vacuum itself, you find that it affects the electric and magnetic properties of the vacuum.
Okay.
Okay. So what happens is that as a result of this change, electric currents were stronger when the ZPE was lower, voltages were greater, and currents moved faster.
Okay.
Okay. Now, as you have a look at a human being, or as you have a look at animals like dinosaurs or whatever, you find that all of us are behaving through the result of the transmission of nerve impulses. The transmission of nerve impulses is basically by an electric current. When the ZPE was lower, the currents moved faster, and this allowed you to have a much shorter reaction time. As a consequence of this, you could grow into a larger size and still be an efficient being. So, for example, today a dinosaur like Diplodocus, it would take about 40 seconds to get a message from his tail to his brain. Okay, and another 40 seconds to get a message from his brain back to his tail. The beast would be totally unfunctional. He couldn't work as an efficient beast at all. However, back in those days, back in the days when the dinosaurs were there, it turns out that the ZPE was so low that you could get a message from his tail to his brain and back again in less than 1/10 of a second. So he would be a very efficient beast. So as the ZPE strength built up, the speed at which the nerve impulses were transmitted slowed down, and it was only the smaller varieties which survived.
I understand what you're saying, but let me follow it a little more carefully. So if the ZPE is lower, the speed of light is faster.
Yes.
Electric circuits go faster,
Yes.
in effect.
Yes.
Okay, see that's the thing, that as a ZPE is lower,
there's less resistance
less
to
resistance.
Yes.
Okay, so that could be a major factor in the fact that not only dinosaurs, but certain kinds of plants and so forth grew larger back there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so for example, in the Adelaide Museum, near where I used to live, you walk in the door there and there was a massive scorpion, a Eurypterid, which was 8.5 feet long. Incredible. Today scorpions only grow about 9 or 10 inches. This is fortunately, yeah, but due to the a stronger ZPE, the nerve impulses can't make that a more efficient beast. It wouldn't be efficient if it was any longer than 8 or 9 inches.
This is what's so fascinating for us to also, it affects our worldview to realize how much of history and the components of history are impacted by the ambient conditions, ZPE being but one of them. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing is an interactive design.
Yes.
The environment and the things in the environment are highly skillfully orchestrated. That's what's so staggering. So, but anyways, as the ZPE starts to increase, things get to the size that we're used to.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a decrease in the size of a viable functional organism.
And we get a grasp of the ZPE by looking back through time, by looking at distant galaxies.
Yes.
And getting from them a measure of the ZPE
Strength.
back there.
Yes, that's right.
And that gives us a way to calibrate what was going on in the universe.
Yes.
Wow. So the whole idea of grasping not only the ZPE, but the whole stochastic electrodynamics is crucial in building a valid worldview, isn't it? That's one of the challenges we all have in our culture, is to help our young people build a worldview that's valid. rather than inculcate them with a worldview built on things we know are not true. And that's what really bothers me, because so much of what we teach our kids are things that scientists, true scientists, really know are incorrect. I usually use the nebular hypothesis in astronomy as an example. Still taught in college. And yet anyone that does the math realizes it's not a viable. Even Laplace, back when Swedenborg first proposed it, had the math background and hurt us all by not applying his knowledge to demonstrate it wasn't mathematically tenable. But as it gets accepted, then it gets inculcated in the culture, and now no one questions it, but it's mathematically untenable, as is what we call the theory of evolution, which when we say that term, we really mean biogenesis, and it clearly is assaulted by virtually all the facts. There's no way mathematically, and that's, Hugh Ross has done a good job, I think, in promoting the whole, what we call the anthropic principle. Over 400 measures that if any one of them change one part in a million, life's impossible. Well, that's just a very elegant definition that life is a miracle. And yet we don't teach that in school.